everybody, Ty here. Hope everybody is doing well and has had a good Christmas. And for a while, we've been wondering when would something like this start to pop up here? Because it's been a very quiet fall and winter. I would even say suspiciously quiet because you only had to figure that at some point we're going to have an opportunity for severe weather. Now, as of right now, nothing major's happened. Only two hail reports so far. We're hoping it stays that way here. In fact, I'm on standby at the time of me making this video to go live. There is even a small chance that I may not even get this video out, depending on whether or not things ramp up. Now, with this enhanced risk, there are some conditional factors to it. In fact, you're seeing one right now just looking at the overview right now. To see this is our current radar imagery, and you can see there's a lot, and I mean a lot, of shower and thunderstorm activity over there. A couple of those storms are even severe with severe thunderstorm warnings. But what makes this interesting and also conditional is the fact that we aren't going to be expecting much in the way of redevelopment from this either. So I think this will be an early afternoon threat. And the thing with this is, and this is what makes things really complicated, the wind profile during this time frame isn't great right now, because if you actually go ahead and get into the guts of this enhanced risk here, the enhanced risk is a tornado driven one, and storms are already firing off in that environment. The best time for tornado genesis, or the best kinematics over this area, is going to be later this evening. So the fact that we have these storms firing here, there may be a chance that this tornado threat drops off. Not a guarantee, but there is a chance. There are other small factors that would take too long to get into in the course of this video, so it'll turn into like a 2-hour long video, and even then I don't think I will be able to name them all. But anywhere between Lufkin and Houston today, do have to be on the lookout for a tornado, and potentially even a strong one. Now we'll get into the details as to why I think that the threat could still be limited a little bit later into this video here. Also have to be watchful of the wind and hail threat, and we're also going to talk about Saturday here, because as about less than 30 minutes ago, the new outlook came in for Saturday, and this is towards, again, the Mississippi Delta in the deep south here. We have a new enhanced risk for this as well. Now, I don't think the tornado threat for this day is going to be quite as high. It's a little bit more uncertain. But then again, in all fairness, today's tornado threat was uncertain. Now, keep in mind, today hasn't even verified as a reasonable 10% hatch risk. We'll have to see how things pan out. Nothing's certain until it is with weather. But this also kind of piques my interest as well. But I think the damaging wind threat is really going to take the cake on this one, if things verify with that even. During the winter time, severe weather is really complicated, or severe weather forecasting is really complicated. But in any case though, let's go ahead and keep moving forward here. We're going to go ahead and take a look at the weather models here. We're going to start higher up into the atmosphere. This is our current trough right now. This is going to be the catalyst behind our storms today. So one thing to make note of here is the forcing is pretty weak. You look at these little contours right here, and the tighter that those contours move together, the stronger the forcing is. We just don't really seem to have a whole lot of that. So I expect a relatively messy storm mode as a result of this, just looking at the higher levels alone. We're not even talking about the lower levels, moisture, and any of those factors. Just looking at this alone and already seeing the activity that we have now, I would anticipate a very messy storm mode to persist throughout the day for this region. And I think that that could play a part in limiting the tornado threat, especially the strong tornado threat, because typically what would happen is we would be looking for more supercells to emerge here whenever you have that stronger tornado threat. Not to say that they can't happen with clusters, but it's a little less likely. And as we go further along here, of course, this trough begins to disintegrate as we get later into the evening. And then tomorrow, the threat for severe weather starts to diminish as this trough begins to disintegrate. Only to be followed up by another trough to come in tomorrow afternoon. Relatively weak one though, but this also sets the stage for the Saturday event, which we're kind of at a point where range is limited on this right now. We're right at the edge of our convective model limit here, which is about 48-60 hours. The 60-hour models haven't even finished updating yet, so I can't even use that as of right now at the time of this video. But a pretty stout trough looks like it tries to take shape here, and it's in the process of evolving as we get into Saturday afternoon. So could be in early evening, maybe even an overnight severe threat over towards the Mississippi Delta as we get into the 28th and beyond here. pretty interesting time here, as a lot of people are going to be out and about. Football is still going to be ongoing, of course, just thank goodness that there's no holiday during this day. But nonetheless, here we'll be keeping an extra close eye on the potential for some severe weather. It'll be tricky to hash out the time of initiation. I do think it's, again, probably early evening is going to be the main threat, and the peak could be right at or just a little bit after sunset here. But of course, again, a lot of other factors play into this as well. Looking at the 700 millibar range here, and we're really looking for a short wave to kind of help overcome some of that weaker forcing that we're going to have at the higher levels of the atmosphere for today. It doesn't really look like we have anything robust here until later into the evening, and even then I don't know if it'll be enough to get any sort of redevelopment of any kind. If anything, I do think the tornado threat could be a little bit higher off towards the east here. Not so much maybe east central Texas, but, and this is a fleeting thought, keep in mind, but maybe over towards maybe north central Louisiana could be a point of interest as well as we go further along here. And then as we go forward here, Friday as of right now, I'm not too concerned with it. It's Saturday again that kind of piques my interest. Notable trough really starts to develop, and shortwave looks like it's going to be starting to develop based off of this run by the time we get towards the early afternoon. Now, from the looks of it, we may be dealing with a little bit more in the way of a linear mode, more so than a discrete storm mode here. But of course, other factors that play into this, as we mentioned before, and then on top of that, we're at the very edge of our convective model here. So we'll probably be making a follow-up video for this tomorrow to go along with what's going on over the rest of the lower 48 here. Keep in mind that I try not to make these videos too long. Now, as we go further along, let's go ahead and get to the low-level jet now. And this is where things kind of pique my interest a bit more. And this is kind of what's making me wonder about that threat further off to the east a little bit, is seeing that increased area of low-level jet coming into play over towards maybe west central Louisiana towards north central Louisiana. We're going to be, if it's like right on the edge right here, and I see that north to south flow, which I always tend to look for with these kinds of events, that does lead me to be a little bit leery of this area here. Now, like I said, it's not set in stone, and as we know, maybe with the messy storm mode or the messy convective mode here, we may not get much of anything. But if things can come together in the right manner or the wrong one, depending on your perspective, this could turn into a little something over here. And like I said, I really think right over towards north central Louisiana will be the point of interest at this point in time. If nothing, of course, happens over towards east central Texas, of course. We'll watch this, of course, move out. Winds are going to pick up over the deep south over the next day or so. And again, the stage begins to set itself up for the following day here. Notable area of low-level jet already looks to present itself on the 28th, on the afternoon of the 28th here. So it does kind of lead me to wonder just what might the 18Z, or not 18Z, but the OOZ model runs will present to us as we get later into the day today. If we go live and nothing's going on, I'll probably actually make an update on this live. But a lot going on right now in the weather world, so to speak here. Big factor for today is going to be those surface temperatures over towards east central Texas and also towards north central Louisiana. And what kind of keeps my interest in today's setup is the fact that over towards this region, we're still in the lower 70s. Of course, we're closer to the coastline where we have those lower 70s, mid 70s. But if we can get some good instability here with some moisture, which already it looks like it's the case here, just based off what I was seeing on radar, all the convection we have is usually a good sign of a good moisture return. So if things could get going, like I said, a few tornadoes aren't out of the question here. I think the threat will be a little further to the south. Now, over towards north and central Louisiana, those temperatures aren't quite as warm. They're in the mid 60s. But the kinematic environment, along with the surface temperatures and along with the dew points together, could be enough to overcome all of that. So, like I said, a lot of moving parts with this system here. Very much a conditional threat, but if things could, if things were to evolve in a manner in which the environment becomes ideal, we need to look out, especially if this threat persists into the overnight hours. And then, of course, as we look towards Saturday, you can already see a little bit of warming out ahead of our storm system here. By the time we get towards Friday, so we get towards Saturday, even though we're in the Saturday morning time frame here, we're already seeing temperatures starting to get into the upper 50s and the 60s. About 65 degrees really would be all that you need. And it looks like we get a nice little warm sector popping up just out ahead of that trough here. So again, I really think that we could be dealing with a situation where all hazards are possible for Saturday, especially as we look further towards that Mississippi Delta, as we mentioned before. By the time we get towards early afternoon, we're already getting into those lower 70s, maybe even some mid 70s possible here. And this will be right around that 1 to 2 o'clock time frame. So the sun pops out at any point, who knows what could happen here. Now, let's go ahead and get into the moisture return. And again, like I said before, ample moisture out ahead for today's setup, getting those 70-degree dew points even coming into the equation. And even over towards Louisiana, and this was part of the question that I had here, was just how rich will this moisture return be? And it seems like we're still going to be pretty sufficient as we get towards the OOZ, O1Z time frame here, which would be about 7, 8 o'clock. So it's a little bit after sunset here, but considering we'll still have ample surface temperatures along with that moisture return, could turn into a little bit of an issue. No pun intended. You'd have to be a weather nerd to kind of get the pun, but yeah. Anyway, that being said, what I find very notable about Saturday setup is there is a lot of moisture that comes in from the Gulf as we head towards the early afternoon on Saturday. So, the increase in concern and the upgrade to an enhanced risk doesn't seem unwarranted. It seems very reasonable, if anything, if you ask me. But again, like I've said before, and this is a reason not to panic, nothing's really set in stone with the weather. Definitely need to be watchful nonetheless, though. So as we go further along and start to get into the more intricate stuff like instability and whatnot, just want to let you know, make sure you hit that like button if you want further updates. That being said, let's go ahead and take a look at our instability today. Again, like I said before, it seems like the instability is going to be much further off to the south where the environment's been a little less tapped, but we'll have to see how things go. As far as our mix layer, though, we're dealing with values above 2,000 joules per kilogram, more than sufficient enough for all hazards of severe weather at this point. Now here's a time frame yet again. By the time we get towards 22Z, we're starting to see a drop off in that instability. And this is where the question again kind of comes into play for me once more towards north central Louisiana. Really, I think the big limiting factor is going to be instability. It seems like everything else kind of comes together, but that instability is going to be a key factor in sustaining those storms. Now, we do get above 500 joules in the mix layer. Now, if we were to go to the surface, and I think this would be even more crucial, I would say, than the mix layer. And wow, look at these values here, getting to 3,000 plus, and they sustain themselves pretty well. If we could get some decent surface cape here also towards north central Louisiana, that could be a point of interest. There are some areas a little further to the south where we're getting above 1,000 joules per kilogram. So again, I'm still watching maybe towards southern Louisiana. We'll have to see what north central looks like. But in either case, I think the threat over towards the overnight hours might have to be monitored with great interest here, in my personal opinion. Now, let's go ahead and go back to mixed layer here. No, I keep going back and forth on the screen, but we're gonna fast forward all the way to Saturday. Of course, big reason why I'm not too concerned about Friday is the lack of instability available. But look at how we already have an ample amount of instability out ahead of that trough before we even get into the early afternoon on Saturday. Again, another reason probably why we've had an upgrade to an enhanced risk today, because I don't even think they had it at slight risk yesterday for the day 4 threat, and then this morning they'd upgraded to slight, and then of course by the time we headed towards lunchtime, that's what we got the upgrade to enhanced. But in any case, though, a lot of instability built up already. And this is the mixed layer cape, keep in mind. The surface cape usually is often higher, but anything above 1,000 joules per kilogram is often a telltale sign that something could occur here, where you could have increased thunderstorm activity and a few stronger thunderstorms as well to go along with that. Now, fast forward to the end, look at this. Easily hitting 1,000 to 2,000 joules per kilogram at the surface. So, like I said before, it's a little conditional, still in my honest opinion. But the tornado threat towards this area might be just as ample as that wind threat. Still, details with the trough are going to be a key factor in all of this, along with the shortwave. But I do think everything is starting to fall into place here. Some notable signals that we're seeing at this point here. Still very unclear as to what the convective mode for Saturday will be like at this point. Well, we're getting closer and closer to figuring out. Again, I think by tomorrow I'll have a good follow-up video to this to go along with what we're going to be talking about for the lower 48 as far as the weather pattern as a whole over the next couple weeks. So here is what the simulated radar could look like today. Notice a lot of activity for today over towards east central Texas. Could be a big time limiting factor. You do not see much in the way of discrete cells here, which leads me to have questions with the tornado threat. Not necessarily disagreeing with anyone from the Storm Prediction Center. I do think that they were onto something there. And I do think that there's still potential for a few stronger storms with the potential to spin as we get later into the evening. But as you can see here, it's not the most robust look that I've seen. There are a few kidney beans over here that I would still keep an eye on as we get into the evening hours. Now, as we go further along here, you see this line begin to disintegrate. Not really too concerned with the severe weather threat for Friday. So getting to Saturday, obviously nothing's going to be crystal clear at this point, but you can already start to see signs of convection beginning to occur by the time we get into the early afternoon. Now, what this storm mode could bring, I do think a linear mode is possible, but we could also see a discrete mode just based off what I'm seeing here as well. The forcing is pretty strong with this over towards Louisiana, but over here towards the Delta, it does kind of weaken around this time frame. So, like I said, a lot of questions with this. Very interested to see how things kind of pan out with this one. We could see a notable severe setup, or we could just see a strong line of thunderstorms with just damaging winds here. But the ceiling for Saturday is notable, and the threat is palpable. So just definitely make sure that you're staying tuned here, whether it's to this channel or local news station, weather channel, whatever you may, to make sure that you're staying updated, especially if you live over towards this area. But that's all I got for you guys. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure you smash that like button and decimate that share button. Also hit that subscribe button if you're new around here. I've also noticed about 60 or 70% of you that watch these videos are not subscribed. So what's the deal with that, man? But that being said here, you guys take care and have an awesome rest of your day. I will be seeing you very soon, maybe even tonight. Till then, it's been Metalhead Weatherman signing off.